looking at the YouTube quotes.
I have the comments pulled up, so if we notice anything.
Okay. Okay.
All right, and we're live. I honestly don't know how to tell if people are on or not, but that's here nor there. We're going to start no matter what. Okay, welcome to this special edition of, I don't know if this is considered a street parking podcast, but this is Coach Alex with coaches Kate and Terry, our pregnancy and postpartum coaching team, here to talk about all things strength training. I'm live right now. All things strength training, pregnancy and postpartum. I know, right? So, we are here. We have some topics that we want to cover, but also, like I said, I have the comments pulled up. So if anyone here is watching live and has a question for our fantastic coaching team, please ask away and we'll do our best to get to those. But we're going to start off first and foremost with what are the benefits of strength training in these seasons of life? Why would someone who is pregnant or postpartum want to include some strength training in their regimen? So whichever, Kate or Terry, whoever wants to kick it off.
Go for it, Kate.
Okay. I didn't want to step on I'm like, Terry's probably going to just jump right in. So, no, gosh, there's so many benefits of strength training, in pregnancy and postpartum. I feel like you hear so much of like, what you shouldn't do. And, pregnant women are fragile. And it's been a narrative for so long. And we just aren't. We are so capable of doing so much. And as a result, there are so many benefits that can help us. So first, just like basic health, and Terry could probably chime in a lot more here, but helping with just labor and delivery overall, making it an easier process. Not in all cases, of course, there's other things that factor into a labor experience, but it can overall generally help somebody. It can also help with like gestational diabetes. It can help mental health benefits, increased energy levels. Strength training, especially during pregnancy, can help with mitigate like those aches and pains that we always get, right? Like the low back, pelvic girdle pain, all kinds of things. Of course, it's not like, gonna like be totally perfect and gonna be like totally keep you pain free, but it is certainly something that can help mitigate a lot of that for us. And so that's kind of the basic benefits. And one of the big ones is it's going to help you prepare for your postpartum recovery, right? And that's like the big buzz thing. I mean, everybody, once you've had a baby, I feel like you are kind of like targeted all of these postpartum programs. But strength training in pregnancy is one of the best things that you can do for your postpartum recovery. And Terry, I'll let you add in anything I might have missed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, it's the same reasons why we train outside of pregnancy and postpartum. Like we're training for our health benefits. We're training for our longevity. We're training for resilience in our all the, our joints and mental health and everything else in our, cardiovascular system. But we're training for life. And car seats are heavy. Babies are heavy. Schlepping all the things, like you have to train for that. Like it is, that's why I get so, so frustrated when I see some pregnancy or postpartum like programming that has like little tiny weights. And then mamas are like, okay. And then picking up like a car seat awkwardly with like a 30-pound, car seat plus the infant is often really heavy, and we're doing it awkwardly. So like we need to be able to train for that. And we really have seen the pendulum swing, just to speak to all the things you're not supposed to do. The pendulum really has been swinging in research and what we know about safety. We have previously been really, really conservative with recommendations for training during pregnancy because we really didn't know a lot, because it's not been studied, because it's hard to study pregnant like individuals, because getting, not to get like, super into it, but like getting IRB approval, being able to get a study approved to work on, to study pregnant individuals is really tricky. So that's why there's not a lot of research. One of the reasons anyway. But now we have more and more robust data showing that it is safe and effective for most people that are not high risk, to train even higher intensity, even with heavier loads. I would say that pregnancy, you can continue, you obviously make like loads of adaptations along the way, but like you kind of continue more with the path that you've been on with training. It's that shift after birth that is like a much bigger shift, it seems like, because you have had probably the biggest single weight loss that you can have in one day. There are often a lot of changes during labor that happen, whether or not you've had an abdominal surgery, whether or not you've had any perineal tearing or trauma. Like there's a lot of recovery that happens there. So, exercising during pregnancy is really kind of like getting, putting some into the bank, right? For being able to take that time for postpartum healing and recovery, and then gradually get back to it when you're able, which is why we have the postpartum programming to help with that kind of, programmed way of kind of returning to exercise. Yeah. Alex, anything you want to chime in on any of that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, I think. I feel like I would have almost liked to have experienced a pregnancy, like a control variable where I wasn't, I wasn't conditioned. I didn't have a baseline of strength or like a foundation in that, just to see so I can compare, because my experience has been, and I want to attribute it to the decade of fitness I had prior to becoming pregnant, but it's hard to say yes or no because,
right.
Who knows, but exactly. But I tell you, as far as aches and pains go, I mean, with Penelope, I never experienced low back pain, pelvic pain. I mean, and even through this pregnancy now, I still have yet to, I still have 13 weeks left, but so who knows? But I really am like, I want to believe, and really have no trouble believing, that it's because of the work I've done over the years, but then also continue to do through pregnancy.
Right.
And yeah, and even my postpartum experience, I mean, I followed our programs diligently, but I had very few pelvic pain or pelvic floor symptoms. And I also, I was very diligent about doing the functional movement progression or the functional core progression through my pregnancy and even beyond. And even before I was pregnant, knowing I wanted to be pregnant someday, it's just a really fantastic resource. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all in. I'm really excited that we're doing strength training in the beginning of 2025 for the whole street parking community. And I'm really glad we're doing this, because I want those who are in it with me, pregnant, maybe postpartum, to know that it is safe in most circumstances.
Sure.
So now that we've covered the benefits, I do think if there's, maybe now we can talk about, okay, well, we know that it's safe. What might be some circumstances where we would not recommend strength training, and we can get into what kind of modifications and adjustments can we make with those considerations?
So I'll jump in on this one. I do want to mention, just as a little background to what we're doing, we wrote the newsletter for focusing on strength training for pregnancy and postpartum, and we had so much to say that we were like, we have to jump on here and do a podcast. So just a little bit of background, so that we could kind of trim that. And we do have the YouTube chat up, so if you guys have any questions directly for us, pop them into the YouTube chat, and we're keeping an eye on that. So so let us know. But as far as certain times where it might not be safe or recommended to do strength training or even exercise in general during pregnancy is if you've been told by your obstetric provider that you're high risk. So whatever that is, if you are on pelvic rest, there are very specific considerations for what would make someone high risk. Usually it's like multiple gestation pregnancy. And even then, a lot of times there is more and more progress being made in terms of understanding what is that exercise is so beneficial. There are some maternal fetal medicine specialists now who are really being more progressive with what they recommend. But preeclampsia, which is a high blood pressure during pregnancy, and placenta previa, that's when your placenta is really low, but only beyond 26 weeks. So, and there are some other conditions that would cause people to be high risk, and therefore it'd be recommended to take caution with, strength training and exercise. But beyond that, really, we have a lot of good data showing that it is safe and beneficial for the person who is working out and the fetus. And so even folks who are doing, higher intensity training. But of course, there is a lot of room and need to adapt as the belly grows. And we have tons of great resources specifically for each trimester that I want to point out and then pass the mic to Kate. But a lot of the resources that we have are on the Street Parking Members Only website, spmembersonly.com. If you click tools and then Mama's resources, we have a blog for each trimester of pregnancy that goes through and talks about, the adaptations that you might want to make to certain things. And that is really such a great resource. Kate, take it away.
Yeah, no, I think you covered everything as far as just the contraindications. I will say I've gotten some more emails, I feel like recently, just in regards to like IVF and like limitations with that. And so at least that first window of time while we're waiting for like implantation and everything like that, we do always recommend to listen to your medical care team because that is just a different situation. So just kind of putting that in there as part of one of those kind of medical, like those moments where, yes, like you need to listen to your medical care team, and there will be a time and a place for you to kind of come back to training in a way that supports you and your goals and everything in most cases. So, but as Terry said, gosh, we have so many amazing resources that will go into so much more detail about the benefits of strength training and how you can adapt and adjust. One of those is just in our daily programming and within our strength training, like our daily strength program on Wednesdays, for example. We have Mama's modifications in there showing how you can adapt and adjust the exercise depending on what your individual considerations are. And that's going to look and feel different for all of us because unfortunately, as much as Terry and I would like to provide a list to Alex, be like, okay, like do this, don't do this, it is impossible because everybody has different training experience, has different symptoms, has different goals. I mean, there are just so many variables, different equipment. Gosh, there's just so many different variables, which is why we do have those mama modifications on how you can customize the movement to meet yourself where you are based on all of those things. And if you ever are confused or you are unsure, because we do list quite a few different options, that's why we are here to help kind of provide that guidance for you as you navigate your pregnancy. Each week could look different. Each week could look the same for a while. Pregnancy is a wild ride. I'm sure Alex could tell you.
And postpartum. Oh my gosh.
And postpartum, of course, too. But 1 minute you are flying high, you're feeling really good. And then the next day you're like, what? I am so tired. I don't feel good. What can I do? All of a sudden, maybe I know for me, during my second pregnancy, I developed some pretty severe pelvic girdle pain. And it wasn't because I was squatting heavy, but I sure noticed it when I was squatting heavy. And I wish I would have had some of these adjustments or customizations and just strategies to know like how I could have adjusted the movement and kept squatting or kept lunging rather than just like avoiding it. So that's our goal, is to help give you those alternatives so that you can continue doing the thing, continue lifting, continue moving your body so you can reap all these benefits, but in a way that supports you right now to help you later as well.
Yeah, I would, that was one of my hopes for this talk, was to get into that specifically because, so last night I did the Wednesday strength workout, the 5 rounds, 5 back squat, 8 dumbbell or 8 bench press. And what I'm playing around with, specifically during these strength sessions, and especially because they're not timed, it's such an opportunity to practice affecting pressure and tension and how important breath work is to that, and how like you can manipulate so many variables with just how you're breathing. And so it's just a great time. And so, for instance, during the back squat, I noticed, I was talking with Terry, or maybe both of you, about how I was curious about the Valsalva maneuver and if that was, safe during pregnancy and how I preferred it, which for those of you, and please correct me, this is my understanding of it, but I would inhale during the eccentric phase and hold through the majority of the concentric phase, like the exertion portion of a movement, until I'm past that like sticking point, and then release the breath. Would you guys, it's kind of like
they're different. It's a breath hold. Yeah.
Yes, a breath hold.
But you can coordinate it different ways depending on, like, some people hold their breath throughout the whole movement. Some people inhale or exhale throughout different parts of the movement. But if there's a breath hold in there, then that's kind of the like qualifying factor. Yeah. But I will say that there is a difference between a Valsalva, a breath hold, and bearing down. And it's really confused. It's confused in the literature. Like, it's that term Valsalva is used to mean bearing down in a lot of like research that you read, which is so confusing, but it's not the same thing. Like, technically a Valsalva is a breath hold, and your abdominal contents actually move up. It's pelvic floor contraction with the breath hold. Whereas bearing down, it's like, actually it's meant like when you clear your ears, like when you're on a plane, the pressure stays like up with the breath hold. But with bearing down, it's a relaxation of the pelvic floor. Your abdominal contents move down, which you can actually bear down with either a breath hold or without. So I just want to clarify, like, Valsalva and bearing down, not the same thing. And because a lot of people confuse them, they think that a Valsalva would therefore be a bad thing to do, labeling it a bad thing. But a lot of people find more and better pelvic floor support through heavier lifts with a breath hold. It's really just a matter of testing, seeing what feels good for your body, trying it, inhaling, exhaling, or breath holding at different times, even doing a breath hold with different amounts of, like, how much am I going to breathe in and then hold, so there's a lot of different kind of variables at play, and really finding out what feels better for you is kind of the so sorry, I went on a big old tangent.
No, I think it's so good to know, though, because it is one of those things too that, primarily has been taught, especially like maybe in the powerlifting world. When I used to do a lot more in-person workshops, I was always, I guess, I don't know if amazed is the right word, but I guess amazed about like how many people would come and say like, okay, we would talk about breathing and breath holding and bracing, and how many people were taught to breath hold with the bearing down, like you were trying to go to the bathroom. Yes. Yeah. And that for both men and women can create some pelvic floor issues like
Hemorrhoids.
hemorrhoids. I was gonna say passing gas, but like,
Or
yeah.
incontinence.
So I mean,
Yeah.
but so this isn't just like a pregnancy postpartum thing. It's a
Right.
you know, pelvic floor thing, and also it's a performance thing as well. You know, if you've got support coming up from the bottom as well, and we're managing pressure within our abdominal canister, right? Like that's giving us more support within, like, for our spine and to actually perform a lift better and more efficiently. So it's increasing performance as well. So that's also why it's kind of a cool thing to just, you know, talk about and put out there.
Yeah. And I think, well, once I learned that maybe the tendencies, especially for athletes or, you know, trained individuals, are to either pressure out, like into the abdominal wall, or pressure down, like bearing down into the pelvic floor, and how just a simple cue to like breathe into your lats or to breathe wide
360 degrees. Yeah.
was, I mean, that was like, oh my gosh, yeah, of course. Like, and especially because I worked so hard on like a diaphragmatic breath, which I don't think is a bad thing. And it should be 360, right? But I often, because I was like so focused on my belly, it became a pressure out. And not that it was effective, but there's so much pressure right now on my abdominal wall, in my pelvic floor already. It's like, maybe this is not the time to add to that pressure. And so my focus now is on spreading out and wide. And even, you know, I'll video myself and it's like, it's so apparent in my, you know, in my belly, like my belly stays real rounded versus like coning, which I'm not, you know, I don't want to scare anyone because I think coning has become this huge, like scary thing. And it's like, well, it's not yes, but no. And so, and like, even so like last night and even last Wednesdays, and I've had a video recording of all this, but I have yet to post anything. But basically I am matching my movement to my breath. So whereas I think a lot of times, especially like in a high intensity workout, that just goes out the window for one, or we're trying to, you know, we're trying to catch up with our you know, our movement with our breathing or vice versa. So you can watch me like whereas I might have just like my cycle speed might never have changed in a workout. I'll actually like, you'll see me I'm just standing there waiting for my inhale to come so that I can perform the exercise, you know? And so it's just much more intentional, much more deliberate. And because it's not second nature for me, I am having to, it's just taking longer, which is fine. But I guess I want to encourage other, you know, women who are in that kind of same space, like just slow down, like take your time with it. It's okay that it doesn't feel natural, you know, I have to tell myself that. It doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. You know, it's just,
It sounds like you're learning so much about your body though. Like you're learning so much about like all the different variables that you can play around with during training. And that is going to,
and I'll say that's also one of the biggest benefits of this season is it does kind of give us permission, maybe that we wouldn't have normally given ourselves otherwise, to kind of slow down and lean into these opportunities to learn and try new strategies, new movements that can kind of fill in some of those gaps of our training previously. And honestly, almost with every athlete I've ever worked with through pregnancy and postpartum, almost has always said that they feel stronger and and better equipped as a postpartum athlete, hitting a ceiling that, or, you know, breaking the ceiling that they didn't think was possible. And I just think that is the coolest freaking thing, because this does not define our abilities and what we are capable of. If anything, it gives us a leg up on everything that is possible to do in the future. I know for me, after having my second son, I would say like a year postpartum, I was lifting the heaviest weights I've ever lifted. I was competing like at a pretty like intense level, like not like CrossFit games or anything like that. No, I mean, I'm talking just like in the gym going RX. Let me just make that like intense in the gym going RX. Then that type of thing. But I mean, I was the most powerful I've ever been in my life. And I just think that is the coolest feeling, you know, as somebody who's raising 2 kids, to be like, I'm not done yet, you know, like, in fact, I'm not even close.
Yeah.
So
the other day, okay, I have 2 things I want to say. This is, so you guys, I'm sure, have like kind of seen my, you know, my garage setup with videos and things. And I was so excited when Josh mounted our pull-up bar. And then recently he like made it a storage, like, so he put some planks of wood across the top to store some things. We can still do pull-ups and we can still do toes to bar, like, and he made sure of that and stuff. And I was like, oh, but I can't do bar muscle ups. He was like, when have you done bar muscle ups? I was like, and I cried. I got teared up because I was like, oh, like, it was just in the I was pregnant. I mean, and you know, so that was already, my sensitivity is probably a little higher already. But I was like, I'm going to do bar muscle ups again one day. You'll see.
I can't wait to see it.
I know. And I know I will. And it'll, you know, we'll take those that storage space out if that comes to it. But that was just a funny aside. So you were talking, I was going to say, yeah, like, and I do think it's because of that deliberate movement where like our coordination improves through our core and through our pelvic, like all that musculature, like that muscle system becomes more coordinated. Because I know we've talked before how core strength is important, but it can sometimes it becomes the issue. Like so many athletes are hypertense, right? Like just like it's too much and we need to learn how to down train, you know. And it's not so much strengthening, that is an element to it, but it's more about coordinated. Are the right muscles engaging at the right time through, you know, the right range of motion? And sometimes slowing down and being more intentional is the exact thing we need. It's a more practice than it is a training, meaning it's more like neurological. And I was going to say for any pregnant woman or in postpartum, you know, Miranda has talked about this a lot. Anytime she comes back to strength training after a period of time, you know, whatever season, it's far more about the neuromuscular, like regaining that neuromuscular, re-greasing that groove, because her muscle mass is largely still the same. Maybe it's reduced slightly, but like the hardware is there. It's the software that needs to be, you know, reprogrammed. And I've, you know, in the newsletter that we sent out, you guys had taken a snippet of a comment that I had left to someone. But basically that's kind of my understanding of it right now is I've let go of, I'm not gaining strength necessarily during this time. If anything, I'm, you know, maintaining or trying to stave off any like major losses, but it's more so just like giving my brain and my body that, like, continuing to grease that groove so that it's not so far off or so far away when I transition to postpartum. And then I'm working, you know, in pregnancy, I'm like, it's down, you know, it's detraining and then it's retraining. And postpartum, it's kind of like, it's a mirror effect where, you know, but yeah, so I agree. I think it's just a season, and it's a really important season for us to learn our bodies, which is maybe a good tangent. I'm curious because, you know, I know you guys know this, but so often the advice to pregnant and postpartum women is to listen to your body, and how like ambiguous that can be, or even arbitrary, you know. So
the body lies. Don't always listen to it.
some suggestions on what does that mean? Yeah. How can we do, like, what does it mean to listen to your body? What are some things that we can be listening for when it comes to training and strength training specifically?
Yeah. Well, I'll say a few things and then I'll segue Terry in because she just wrote a pretty awesome post on the bench press specifically, or parts of the bench press considerations. But, really listening to your body is kind of dialing in. Okay, are you having symptoms? Are you leaking? Do you feel heaviness or pressure down into your pelvic floor? What are you noticing? And then it's making those changes as you need to based on your goals and really kind of weighing the risk versus reward of continuing a movement the way that you're doing. But weighing that individually on how you might adjust. Dizziness is a big thing. If you're dizzy during a workout, don't keep pushing yourself. It's okay to pause. It's okay to take a step back. You might have to just need that little bit of a break, or maybe you need to do something different, like adjust your range of motion or adjust your loading or something like that. Or maybe it's time just to pause that movement altogether and kind of move on to a different movement. Let's see. Yeah, of course, like if you have like overheating, like that type of thing, that kind of comes into play. Typically with strength training, you're probably not going to get too overheated, but just listening to that. If you're asking yourself, like that little tiny voice inside you that's like little person on your shoulder, like, I don't know if I should really do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, just to see if I can do it. Is it really the best time? I don't know. You're the only one that can make that, but like, that's like listening to your body. Like maybe that's like your just like gut, like, okay, is this really going to serve me now to help me with anything? And then going back to kind of like dizziness, discomfort, that type of thing. There's so many things that we can adjust as part of listening to our body. Terry wrote a really great, it's not out in the world yet, I've just seen a copy of it, but about how we can make adjustments to kind of counteract some of those symptoms. It doesn't mean necessarily like stopping, that it means looking at it from a different angle and trying something different. So Terry, I'll let you jump in. I think I missed a couple different things there that you probably want to elaborate on. So
yeah, I just want to speak to really knowing yourself. And if you're one of those people who has like hardcore athlete brain, like you have been trained over the years not to listen to your body signals and just to push through and to ignore your body signals, then like listening to your body is probably not going to work very well for you. So really it's about like knowing yourself. And if you're someone to kind of push through, maybe it is a time for you to try to connect more with what your body is saying. Now, listening to your body, I do want to say though, that we, the messages that we get from our body are not always accurate. And let me go a little bit more into that. Pain does not always mean that there's tissue damage. Okay. But it can mean to slow down, change something, see what's going on. It doesn't always mean that if you're having pain that you've really messed something up and you need to, go on strict bed rest and all of those things. So it is there's like a yellow light and a red light. So I would say like some of these things are yellow lights to slow down, take a look at what we're doing. But know that some of these symptoms, pelvic heaviness doesn't always mean prolapse, right? And sometimes people have really intense symptoms, but they don't really have a lot of physiological changes that are accompanied with those symptoms. So some of it's about knowing yourself. And some of it is about kind of understanding that our symptoms don't always match what's going on. But we want to honor and acknowledge what our bodies are experiencing and accommodate, what it is that we're doing. So if you're really confused by what I'm saying, or if you notice a really troubling symptom, that's when you reach out for support, right? That's when you reach out to us. Tag us in the Facebook group, email mamas@streetparking.com. Like, we're not necessarily going to say one way or the other, because we can't really do that, but we will support you. We will help you navigate this time, help you navigate, what things to try to modulate your symptoms. So that was a lot in a nutshell. Anything you want to tack onto that, Kate?
I would also say, like, I see that there's just a comment on the YouTube channel about just being so extremely exhausted, fatigued, nausea, like, and this, it's okay to honor that and to have what you're doing maybe look and feel a little different. Yes, we speak to consistency, but consistency could just look like walking every day, you know, for 10 minutes and just getting the benefits of fresh air. And the general benefits of moving your body. It doesn't necessarily mean like forcing yourself to do a version of the daily workout, you know? So it is a lot about meeting yourself where you are and listening to those things. And also asking yourself questions like where you might have to get a little bit vulnerable. Like, if I am exhausted and I'm forcing myself to do a workout, am I feeling better for having done that? Or do I feel worse? You know? And if the
I was
answer
just
is
thinking,
worse,
like, does this make me feel better or worse?
Right.
And
Right.
it's kind of, oftentimes it will, I know it will make me feel better, but I know, and I do want to like stick with the strength training, but I'll just speak to, like, I've had to, both with Penelope and with this pregnancy, if I go really hard, and it's like I'm listening to my body. At no point during the workout am I like, oh no, I'm pushing too much. It's, for me, it's after, and I get nauseated and I'm vomiting. Like, and so I just have to trust, because sometimes I'm like, oh, but I feel good. Like maybe it won't happen this time, you know, like I like try like convincing
Getting
myself
further in
like,
my pregnancy.
yeah, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and it is kind of unfortunate in that I don't know if that's true or not. Like maybe I am at a point now where I really could push really hard and it would be okay and I won't feel terrible after. But I'm also just like, it's not worth it to me to find that out later. Like right now, I'm okay with not setting my clock, doing half the workout, doing the shift version, you know, like
Doing
just
lighter weight. Yeah.
yeah, it's just okay right now for me to check the box, know that I moved. And really, I think in where I am, and I realize this is not where everyone is, the Wednesday workouts are such a welcome change of pace, you know? So I think if anything, that would be the thing I'm seeking out during this time, even if it's like it's weights that feel heavy right now, but like aren't really heavy for me, you know, which is totally fine. And maybe
it's also relative, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's like it's
okay.
just fine. It's okay.
I do think.
But yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Well, just that, like, we talk so much about adjusting and adapting for a lot of the physical changes, but I feel like what surprises so many people are like the mental changes, both in pregnancy and postpartum. Like, it is such a mind bleep of not being able to work out the way that you did, not being able to take an hour for a warm up and a cool down, and it looks different. And your baby's there and they're crying, and now there's toddlers running around, you know, like it looks different. Your body, it feels different. It's not feeling good to you. Like it is really, really hard, and it's difficult to navigate. And we, you know, compare ourselves to prior versions of ourselves. It really is so hard. And we really do try to remind people gently that it is a season, and we, you know, even if we're not working out during pregnancy like we thought we would be because we feel like complete crap, you know, like you can find hopefully, and reach out to us if you can't, but find little ways to support yourself during this time, and reminding yourself that, you know, there is really, we're looking at like lifespan of consistency, and that there are so many different seasons in life that we are going to have to dial up and dial down for. If we have like a major illness for us, or for someone in the family, or someone's in, you know, God forbid, has a major accident, like we are going to have so many different changes. And so giving yourself the permission for it to look different and to feel different in your body, and to take the time to slow down and work on those unilateral training. And to, you know, I really had to remind myself with the shoulder injury this year, is like, okay, I'm in the year of the shoulder injury, and like I can't do push-ups and pull-ups anymore, and that is what it is, you know. And, you know, I'll get back to it. Hopefully,
Yes.
fingers crossed. But sometimes it takes a lot longer than we think. So it's not just it's not just you all, and that's why Kate and I are so passionate about supporting pregnant and postpartum folks, because we both had such well, me, I'll speak for myself, a rocky time with that time. So we know all about it anyway.
Yeah. You can speak from experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and let's talk a little bit. So maybe it does mean circumnavigating, or like, for instance, like maybe, so I'm like a diehard daily workout. I rarely dabble in the extra programs. I'm so actually really grateful that we so often highlight them, like especially lately, because it's a reason for me to take advantage of them or explore them. But what are some street parking programs that you both feel you would suggest to someone who maybe does need a change in intensity, or is looking to build strength, and just some programs that you feel like are safe and effective during this season?
Yeah. I mean, we are so lucky because we do have so many extra programs within our street parking app, and which is really cool because there is something for anyone in any stage, especially in our strength programming. So for pregnancy, I love, well, I love the Wednesday strength that we have right now because it is so highly adaptable with the shift in there, especially in it as a pregnant athlete. Or even a postpartum athlete looking to kind of just generally start rebuilding strength. What an awesome way to start either deloading or start progressively overloading things as you start to reintroduce or continue that training. But two, I love the dumbbell strength programs, the whole series, right? Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to do them in order or anything like that, but there are so many great sessions in there that help with unilateral movements, and especially, again, benefit to this season is taking the time to kind of maybe work on any strength imbalances that we've created throughout our years of training.
I was going to say, talk about deliberate movement. I mean, you have all the time in the world to think about your breath and your position.
Yes. Oh my gosh, though. But it helps so much because also, like, I mean, you are carrying and gripping and constantly picking up, putting up, and it's never just like a nice bilateral movement. You're usually holding one thing and pushing or pulling, with something else. And I think that program is so amazing for pregnancy and postpartum because it directly benefits and correlates with your activities of daily living, and is just going to make you stronger in that respect. Also great as a foundation for building and preserving strength.
I'm just gonna say this too. There are some movements I do think it would be a little awkward to do without a weight, like a press or something, although you could.
Like with a band. I mean, if you hold a band, I mean, super effective.
But so many are fine to do completely unweighted, especially while pregnant. I mean, you're carrying, a load anyway.
Yep.
But I just think of some of those split squats where you're descending for 3 seconds, ascending for 3 seconds. I mean, yeah, if I didn't have access to a pair of 5-pound dumbbells, I would be completely okay with just no weight at all. And it would still be really difficult.
Or even just holding a laundry detergent bottle. Sorry, Katie.
Yes. No, that's okay. Yeah. I did it in a creek. I don't know if you remember my Instagram post, but I just grabbed 2 rocks that were around the same size. And I was because my family, we were all just at the creek, and I was I'm going to do one of these power 30. I know that's crazy. But anyway, I enjoyed it so much because I'm out looking at the nature and, doing that slow, presses with rocks.
Yeah.
I mean,
brilliant.
Yeah.
But, and we do have, I believe we have Mama's modifications in for the dumbbell strength sessions. But if you ever find yourself you're just not sure how to customize it, please reach out to us because we can literally adjust almost any movement to help meet yourself where you are. For example, in 3rd trimester for pregnant athletes, it may not feel great to press overhead, sometimes that can solicit like downward pressure, like, and maybe just like feels like a little heavy down to your pelvic floor. So if that's not feeling good and you have a barbell, cool, let's do a landmine press. We're still, getting the benefits of pressing, but just in a way that allows us to kind of manage our pressure a little bit differently. Or if all you have is dumbbells, instead of a double overhead press, could we do a seated single arm press with a lighter load, or using a different object? You could even look at using a band. Or, I mean, I know this sounds silly too, but even if you're like super controlled and pressing, I don't know if like you've ever like done the downwards, like part of a press, like just using your body weight, that starts to light you up after a certain number of reps, like because you're moving so controlled. So like Alex said, a lot of this can be done without weights if you're not able to. So there's definitely always a way to customize and adjust to meet yourself where you are. And I know this kind of also sounds silly, but I love like the butts part of butts and guts for pregnancy. And you could also look at doing the guts and maybe just like, core work is still extremely important. Yes, it might look a little different because sit-ups might not feel great at 30 weeks pregnant, but could we look at doing something a little bit different there? Maybe some pull-off presses, or we could do some kettlebell marching, or like some seated wood choppers or something along those lines that still give us the benefits of core work, just is maybe just a little bit outside of what is programmed. So Terry, I'll let you pop in there.
Well, I was of course going to say the butts and guts because I love it. And I do also want to mention that, there are a lot of myths around core training during pregnancy. And we have an Instagram post dropping tonight addressing core training myths during pregnancy. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But it is, we know that the pregnant abdomen is stretching. And we know that, it is a physiological adaptation that, that we do start to have some abdominal separation. Like 100% of people in the end of third trimester have technically diastasis because it's a normal adaptation. And so it might, like Kate said, it might not feel good. There are loads of ways to adapt, and it's still okay and like safe and good to move your body through its range, to be doing core work. It might, again, just look a little bit different. So I do also love pairing like a Sogo with the butts and guts. And we do also have the Mama Sogo version, which I don't know if folks always know about that one because it is available with the fourth trimester bundle. But it's such a good one as well. Yeah.
And I'll speak to postpartum. So like those are programs I love in pregnancy. Power 30 is also awesome if you have a barbell and you love, lifting in that regards. Again, just kind of like looking for the opportunities there with the dumbbell strength training. But postpartum, of course, I would recommend the fourth trimester bundle. Or if you a postpartum program wherever you go, just to help you rebuild and reconnect that foundation, like what Alex was alluding to earlier, like that neuromuscular and like coordination and kind of like, hey body, how's it going? We just had a baby, things look and feel a little different. It's like that check-in and then like that initial foundation building, which is so huge. And I think it's getting better, but I think there's still like a lot of opportunity for people to have that. And it's okay to take 6 weeks and build that foundation for you to grow off. Then you can layer in and progressively overload programs on top of that, depending on what your goals and interests are. Speaking specifically for strength training, again, I love the dumbbell strength program because again, we're building that unilateral movement. It's going to carry over to everything else. But looking at programs like 531, but not using, not using percentages and really going kind of like a slow build. So like maybe you start with a barbell the first time, or like, just something maybe that's like maybe even 50% of whatever, your old 1 rep max, something that's very light, like in your mind, like this is going to be so light. That is okay. We need a starting point. Just start with the barbell and then maybe add 5 to 10 pounds, the next time you do the session. Assess, test. Okay. did that feel good? Did it not feel good? If it didn't feel good, or you have symptoms like, Alex alluded to, like, you pushed yourself too hard to work out because you threw up, or feel nauseous after a workout, same kind of thing. If your pelvic floor is really fatigued, or you do have like prolapse symptoms or something like that, not a bad thing. It just means that we gave our pelvic floor like a heavy leg day, and it's a muscle like everything else. And we just kind of have to let that adapt, right? And not, just kind of hang out there maybe for a little bit. And then, before we can keep going. But so like 5-3-1, if you're an Olympic weightlifting junkie, which I know you are, Alex, I love the Ollie Imam, but starting with a barbell and just going through like all the sessions with a barbell first, and like rebuilding that technique. But I love that it gives you a lot of rest or work to rest ratio there, some of that. So making sure that you have really good rest in between any of those working sets for any of our strength programs. And if it's not built in, add it in yourself, fitness freedom,
right.
And that is okay to do as well. So those are some of the programs that I really love from a postpartum
really,
lens.
I'm thinking, yes, especially postpartum, but like I would have no issue with Olympic weightlifting right now were it not for the physical limitation of my belly protruding. Yeah.
It's a performance issue.
Exactly. So I say that, I guess, to say like, it would for me would have been perfectly fine for me to have been incorporating that, like maybe the first 20 weeks or so of pregnancy. And now it's literally a physical limitation. And I probably even could, but it's not worth it to me to like risk, bumping my belly, or even to risk like having to drastically change my technique to accommodate for it.
Yes.
It's just not worth it to me. And that's another one of those like risk versus remote. Exactly. Yeah. And I just want to mention this too, because I agree. It's such a blessing to have to go through this season or have this opportunity, because one of the main reason we don't often program strength work with percentages, and why we're not including them in the Wednesday workouts, we're not including them even in the Friday or Saturday kind of like heavy versions of the daily workouts, is because we really truly believe and want our members to kind of assimilate to this culture of like, no, I need to assess how I feel today.
Yes.
Because we understand we're real people with lives, and like, our kids don't sleep, we don't sleep, or whatever, like that's always going to be the case. So we have to be willing, I think, to take that time to make those assessments, to make those adjustments. And I was going to say, the only reason I wouldn't recommend 5-3-1 to someone in this time is that just having those numbers there,
I know,
those percentages, it's so tempting to be like, no, this is what I should be doing. And if anyone is willing to give up that athlete brain,
yes,
then yes, absolutely. Go for 5-3-1, follow the rep scheme, but pay no mind to the percentages. And that's why we don't prescribe percentages, because we want people to know themselves, to trust themselves, and to make those adjustments and because maybe you could go heavier. It's not always the downward part. It's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have gone so heavy. Sometimes it's like, hey, maybe you hold yourself back, And
I can. Sorry. I was going to say, that's where we have to be really honest with ourselves. Like on, maybe this was too easy. And, next time, and the reason why I like the idea of 5-3-1 is because you're able to progressively build, through it. And so, but you have to be honest with yourself, and you can't necessarily go off exactly word for word of what the program, just kind of use it as a general framework, right, to kind of to help guide you in that way. Oh shoot, I lost what I was going to say now, but anyway, Terry, I'll let you go.
So on the note of, if you are feeling like, I really want to meet myself where I am today, and I'm going to go with, this is the weight that I'm feeling, instead of thinking about percentages, thinking about, reps in reserve.
Yes.
So how many more repetitions can I do with good form before I go to failure. And so if you are doing whatever weight you selected for the day, and you feel like you could really keep going, well, then add some reps to whatever was programmed, and you will build, instead of going heavier, you're adding more repetitions. You're going to build strength and hypertrophy or whatever your goals are that way as well. So it's not all about, how much weight you did, or can you slow down and do like some tempo work? How can you make it more challenging or less challenging depending on what your body needs that day? And things really do change also from one pregnancy to the next, or from one postpartum to the next. Like, yes, we'll also compare our pregnancy or postpartum journeys to previous ones that we've had, and it can be really different. I'll give one example, like pregnancy related pelvic girdle pain. The rates of pelvic girdle pain are a lot higher in second and third and fourth pregnancies.
Subsequent
pregnancies, not because, and the theory is interesting because you have the same amount of hormones circulating, it's the same kind of physiologic changes to your body. So why do we have higher rates of pain? A lot of times it's because you have other little ones that you're caring for.
I was going to say, you don't have the luxury of.
So your cup is not as full. You don't have as much reserve. So therefore, pain and discomfort, that a lot of, how we recover has to do with, a lot of those factors. We are complex ecosystems. We're not just machines. So we do have to factor in those big things like sleep, which is obviously like one of the hardest things about postpartum life, rest and recovery, and adjust and adapt day to day. And that's why we need to be able to adjust and adapt day to day instead of looking at those hard percentages and doing the workout as programmed. Like I think it's more of a win if you can do the workout not as programmed. Use those customizations to adjust dial intensity down or up, or dial things, up or down to meet yourself where you are that day.
Yeah.
And also just a quick plug for just even the daily program, but like looking towards the shift as a way to rebuild strength there. So, starting with some lighter loads, maybe lower volume even, and then gradually increasing that over time as well, depending on how, your body's responding, how life is, and those other stressors are going for you. But I know a lot of people love logging things and earning things, which I totally get. So that's just another great way, even if you don't use a specific strength program, to still realize strength benefits, even using the daily programming. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, great. We're coming up on an hour. Is there any other burning desire, anything that we might have missed that you guys want to touch on before we close it up?
I will say just, I know we've mentioned it a couple times, but the pelvic girdle pain is something that comes up a lot for strength. Please go check out our Mama's webpage underneath resources and blogs. We actually have a 2-part blog with a lot of information about pelvic girdle pain. And there's a lot of myths surrounding that, like you can't do lunges anymore and that type of thing. And that's not necessarily the case for most of us. So Terry and I have actually put in a lot of work to that on some ways that you can like de-escalate pain that you might be experiencing. But then also once you've de-escalated a little bit, then a way that you can start to rebuild big thing. Exactly. So like you have to do some clicking, like it is a lot of information, but I do think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles a lot of us face while strength training in pregnancy, at least from a physiological standpoint. So make sure to check that out, because I think it is truly a unique resource that Street Parking has to offer a lot in this particular season. So that's my I want you to know. The more you know plug.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do have so many other great, we have the resource, we have a diastasis blog, we have a prolapse blog. We have really tried to put in this last year and change a lot of effort into creating these resources that, but a lot of people don't even know they're there. So check those out. And as always, reach out to us via email or the Facebook group we are here to support our members through a lifetime of fitness. Even if you're very not early postpartum, years down the line, our menopausers, and our men who also have body concerns that, a lot of people don't realize, like that recovery program is free for all members. It's on the Mama's page, but it can be great for post abdominal surgery or post, major injury or illness when we're coming back, for all bodies. So lots of great resources there.
And I'll just say, this is me like being, so logistically for anyone watching and maybe trying to access the SP members only page and coming up to a roadblock with their login information, just to know that it is separate. It is a completely separate website domain from the logging platform, from our web app or our app. It will require a different login. Really, if you're not sure what your password is or you haven't set that up yet, you can just go through the forgot password steps using your email address associated with your street parking membership, and basically just creating your password then and there. But if all else fails, please just reach out to support at Street Parking, and that team will be more than happy to help get you guys access to all of that information. There's so much on the members only website, so much good little nuggets on that page. So awesome. All right.
Great.
Well, thanks for chatting with us, Alex.
Yeah. Thanks for agreeing to this. I hope it's helpful to that, that demographic, that part of our membership that needs it right now. And if nothing else, is just given the permission, to move forward with confidence, or if not, to know where they can access, who they can access to help navigate during this time. So,
yay.
All right.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody too joining in.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.